My question is, who is God?
Everything depends on you. What is your perspective? And for me, God is everything.
Namaste, World Raisers. Sabine and Roger here. Let's watch Who is God by Mooji.
Yeah, so we just watched our first Mooji video, and it was so good that we have to watch another one. So let's go.
For me, God is everything, including the one that allows or invites this question even to happen. Intelligence, sentience, everything that manifests, and the source of manifestation, all together, all the beings together. You may say, this is God or consciousness. Pure consciousness.
We read that Jesus spoke to God.
Yes.
We see grace coming sometimes.
Yes.
I don't often speak to God. Occasionally I do.
Okay.
The last 2 times I asked him for something, he played a joke on me.
Yes,
I felt. Which is fine as well.
Okay. Yes, he's funny like that. You can ask God, please help me to overcome my weaknesses, to give up all these attachments. And he sticks his fingers down your throat. You won't say thank you for that. Not then.
But you see, we see a harmony in events. But I don't see where the harmony comes from. I don't see where the grace comes from.
Yes. Is it important?
Yes.
In what respect? In what ways it's important to see where it comes from?
It's a search for truth.
Okay. Can you find a boundary for yourself that you can say something comes from somewhere else other than you?
No, I can't. But I can speak to God, so that's making him or her something else.
Yes, yes, yes. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Depends on your outlook, on the understanding also. Not necessarily something else. There comes a time when it is seen that all this diversity springs out of one unicity. That is the one somehow manifesting as all this apparent diversity, relating to itself as otherness, and then coming to find that all this otherness springs out of one unicity, which is its own self. This understanding can come and will come. It will come. If you don't have an investment in the sense of separateness, then you may find that it springs up in you quite naturally. An intuitive knowing that everything arises from one common source, and that source cannot be placed away from my intuitive sense of what I am. And there is no arrogance in that. It's not, I am the source. But somehow maybe, how can I be other than the source? You see? Maybe like this, it will come to you. Perhaps in saying, I am this or I am that, there's more room, more possibility for arrogance. If you say, I am God, some people will take offense. How can you say you are God? But if one says, How can anything exist apart from God? Then it's a gentler way into that same truth. And then also, if you don't like the term God makes some people uneasy, you may use the word consciousness. Because if someone, some being, were to come to you and say, look, I'll give you the entire universe in exchange for your consciousness.
I like your sense of humor.
Is it a good deal or not?
No.
Perhaps if they could say, in exchange for my body, but I would still be conscious about it. Okay, take this one. I'll find another one.
I feel like I want to watch part 2.
Yeah.
Shall we look if there's part 2?
I just wanted to touch on that last little thing he said. Yeah, it's kind of a joke, but saying that if you made a deal, if somebody offered you the universe in exchange for your consciousness, would that be a good deal?
Yeah, well, honestly, I can't wrap my head around it. I don't understand it.
Well, how would you know that you had the universe? How would you know that the whole universe was yours?
Oh, without consciousness.
Without consciousness.
Okay.
So not a good deal, right? So that's why, well, yeah, when you get into the advanced spiritual teachings, yeah, it's all about consciousness or awareness, whatever word you want to use, but just, the mind, right? So before we had words such as consciousness and awareness, the word mind was used. So we're coming from a bit of a Buddhist background, right? So it was no mind, and mind, right? The infinite mind, right? What's the ground and the root of the mind? And it's that quality of, being aware, being cognizant, right? And that's the substance of, the whole universe, all the atoms and quarks and particles and neutrons and protons and everything that manifests in the universe is coming out of the one infinite field of consciousness manifesting as all forms. So yeah, consciousness is primary. The whole universe is in your mind. So without consciousness, you wouldn't even know if you owned the universe, because the universe is made out of consciousness. So that's why, and really addressing, people have that problem with the word, God. So we can, expand our boundaries and redefine, what God is, right? Into this unity and this all-inclusiveness, right? Because as soon as you apply a label to it, somebody's going to come with a different label that they're calling the exact same thing, and then they're going to argue about it, right?
Yeah, once you understand. Yeah, it's just because I had a problem with the word God, but then you hear the different definitions, and at some point it just creates this so different picture and understanding, and then now there is no problem with the word God anymore. Actually, the opposite. I started using it because it nails it. Like, it really, I don't know why, but it's like, I get it.
Yeah.
And the word God is now a beautiful word. And not this abstract, yucky thing.
Because there is a lot of confusion, especially like, even Marvel. You got the Asgardians, right? And they're called God, like Loki and Thor or Odin, are gods. So, and they're anthropomorphic, right? So they have human characteristics and tendencies, right? So you really got to define, when you're using the word God, are you talking about, just a deity that, is more advanced than a human, perhaps? Or you got to be specific. So when I use the word God, for example, this is me, it's the ultimate, the supreme, the absolute truth, the one source of absolutely everything in existence, right? And it's beyond existence and non-existence. It's beyond form and not form. And because it's beyond our capacity to even conceptualize that, I'm not going to say that God is form first and then the creation comes out of the form. You know, some people believe that. Or it's non-form and then the first Godhead comes out of the non-form and then from that everything manifests. This is way beyond our dualistic, egocentric, self-centered, self-cherishing, self-grasping mind to comprehend, right? So it's not our job to really understand all that. That's why I love the Buddha's teachings about, you know, it's better to say that you have heard the teachings, you know, than to claim that you know it, right? Because no, we don't know anything until we've realized it. And then, so why knowing is, you know, so important than actual, you know, belief. So you can believe in something, but if you believe in something, then you're actually creating a block there because you're holding on to something that you don't really know, right? So knowing is different than belief. And that's why for spiritual seekers, we need to, you know, open ourselves. And why I love how Satguru always says, you got to embrace the fact that you don't know, right? Because only when you admit that you don't know can you actually, you know, seek to know.
Anyway, when we go to sleep, consciousness goes.
Yes, yes, yes. What knows this?
The waking self.
Even in the waking state, it's possible to go beyond, to recognize your beyondness even now. For this purpose, I hope this conversation will somehow reveal this. You know you're conscious now. Something is even aware of consciousness, aware of the coming in, the feel and the energy of sleep coming in. Something watches this. Something watches sometimes consciousness leaving also. Who enjoys sleep? You say in deep sleep there's no consciousness. There's no I. There's no relating consciousness. There's no cognition in that way. Nobody can have that. I say you could be married today, tonight honeymoon, but when sleep comes, you cannot bring your bride or your groom into that state with you. You're not even there yourself. Not as husband or wife. And still you have no fear to go into that state where nothing is. We spend a lot of money to buy the best bed in order to forget about everything, including the bed, including your beloved. You have a newborn baby now. Can you keep this baby in your deep sleep? So every day, fortunately, you go to a state where you cannot take anything with you. You cannot even take your eye with you. And we love to be in this state. The eyeless state. And even now, when the eye is present or felt, also, by what is it felt? What recognizes the changing costumes of eye? What sees it? Clearly it is perceivable. So the evidence that there is some power, a deeper power of perception, that is capable of perceiving even eye is already there. What is this? Different from you? I think these questions are more intimate, more fundamental than who is God. Perhaps in coming to some deep understanding within yourself, that question will also be answered for you in a way that is without argument, whether there is or there is not. The question, who am I, is more intimate than who is God.
Get it.
Well, I accept that, but it's not the only question.
It is the best. Of course, it's not the only. There are millions. I've found this the most unsparing question, the most ruthless at exposing the ego as completely a myth. And having exposed it, it's still there and still enjoyed somehow, but from a new place. Because if you ask the question, who is God, and I could give the greatest answer that is going to be satisfying for you, for how long will it be satisfying?
Well, when you point to God, then I can speak to him directly and ask him, are you there?
It's here right now. Where else to be? That which causes the speaking and the listening and the comprehending to take place.
The harmony in the universe has an intelligence.
Yes, even the disharmony has an intelligence. The play of disharmony is a part of the play of harmony.
But that intelligence is other than my sense of perceiving.
For the moment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's very clear. His teachings, I really enjoy listening to them.
Mm-hmm. That was good. Yeah. I love. Oh, go ahead. Oh, me first. I was just gonna say I love the distinction he made between the two questions. Right? People want to know who is God, but he says the better question is, who am I? Right? That self-inquiry, because So in part one, he's talking about, everything is God. We just don't see that. So it's one divine play. It's the manifestation of one source. So everything is one. We don't see it. So through self-inquiry and really getting to the root of the ego and then seeing it for what it is, then there's the possibility to transcend it, right? And then, but even if you can, raise your level of consciousness to a higher state, say unconditional love, for example, this is what David Hawkins taught as well. You can see the ego for what it is, all of its delusions and programs. Like lately, me and Sabina, we've had quite the time in our personal relationship, just in the sense that, karma is ripening and things are happening and there's a little bit of conflict in certain areas. But at the same time that it's all happening, I'll make fun of my behavior, right? Because I can still see it from a little bit of a higher point of view that, okay, I don't know what's going on and why this ego is behaving that way. And I'm very aware of it, but it's still happening, right? So you treat the ego like a pet, is what David Hawkins would say, so that it's still there, but you still love it. It's like people want to kill the ego and crush the ego and transcend the ego, and it's all about ego death. And David Hawkins is saying that, well, you got to love the ego. You got to, gently just let it go. And so you're gradually correcting its behavior. So then
also there is nothing apart from the ego. Like there is no you and the ego. Like in the conventional world, I mean, it's like you, like me, like Roger, we are the ego. We are identified. So we are the ego, like right now. It's like, so when something happens, like we can't say, oh, this is because of, it is because of the ego, but it's not, this was my ego. No, it was you. Like, you are the ego and you are making decisions and you're taking actions. And so it's not like to blame the ego, because it's like, it's literally you doing, I don't know if that makes sense.
It totally is. So you don't want to get that split of the duality of here's me and then my ego and then they're separate, because it's not. It's like we have the ego, our psychological, conventional mind, is with us, and that is us up until full enlightenment, where we've actually transcended it. But even that ego on the path, it becomes more pure and less defiled and less attached to its habitual tendencies, and it begins to see clearer as you raise yourself up the levels of consciousness. And then at the level of unconditional love, which is what I would call, a purified being. This is the level of the saints and the really selfless beings in history that were just at the service of, God and others, wholeheartedly, right? So unconditional love. So that's a saint, but it's still, an ego-identified being, just prior to enlightenment. So yeah, very deep teachings, right? Deep talks. You got to get into the truth. And I also loved what he touched on about just the harmony and the disharmony, and that there's harmony in the disharmony. And this reminded me of David Hawkins' teachings as well, that everything is perfect just the way it is right now. And of course, from our point of view and our separateness, we want to judge everything as being not perfect because we don't like it. But everything is the play. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it's about the tamas, rajas, and sattva. And it's not a spoiler because I've already taught you this. Just the modes of material nature, right? Which is the levels of consciousness. Everybody is the perfect expression of whatever level of consciousness they're at. So it's still a divine play. Is it going to be more beautiful and more harmonious and more pure and more selfless and loving and kind and caring if we had a higher level of consciousness, as a global set point than where it is now? Yeah, true, it would be. So, but it's not like it's going to go from unperfect and disharmonious to perfect and harmonious, because it already is perfect and harmonious right now.
On one level.
We just don't see it because we judge everything. But so it goes from perfect to perfect to perfect to perfect. But that's not to say that there isn't some, real tragedy from our conventional point of view. We can see that there is some, negative things, because the perfect level of consciousness of negativity is perfectly expressing itself negatively. So hate and violence and ignorance and delusion and war and all of that, is the perfect display of that negative level of consciousness. And if we want a higher level of consciousness, and we finally want to do away with that, not to say that it's possible in this Kali Yuga, in this realm of existence, but as spiritual seekers, the teachings are there that we can escape from samsara. And how do you do that? You begin to realize the unity of everything. So the world isn't going to change unless we change ourselves and rise up. Because if we get, if all of a sudden there's a bunch of enlightened beings on the planet, then that level of consciousness radiates out, word gets out, more people get tuned into, there's something other than Netflix to do, right? So spiritual seeking. So thanks so much for joining us. If you liked this video as much as we did, please hit that like button. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Remember to subscribe. It really, really helps the channel. And remember, raise yourself
and raise the world. Thank you so much, everyone. And a very special thank you to all our members. We love you.
Peace.